has the balance team discussed about Jinx being overpowered for too long? I mean, so I'm not. So to be clear, I'm not on the live pod, so I'm not necessarily in every single conversation that they have. But one of the things that they do talk about, and this is something that's been brought up recently, for sure, is staleness, right? Champion staleness. Now, Jinx, I wouldn't necessarily say is like overpowered. I mean, we can take a look at this. Let's say Jinx. We can take a look at LoL. So this is Emerald Plus. Let's take a look at all ranks. Get some good sample here. She's 51. This is 30 days all ranks. Even let's go back, take a look at Emerald Plus. She's essentially also 51, right? Because this is relative to the average Emerald Plus win rate, which is 50.62 on Analytics right now. So she's basically a 51% champ. If I look at her win rate, it looks like it's been pretty similar for a lot of patches. I don't look at this and say like, oh, she's overpowered. Is she strong? Sure, she's strong. But staleness is something that's been talked about for sure around like, hey, the champions that are strong but not necessarily too powerful, do we want to cycle those from time to time, right? So one of the examples of this, of like, sometimes the answer is no, to be clear, is like, there are some champions that we think are actually good for the meta to have these champions be on the stronger side in some cases, right? As an example, Jinx, I think, is a good example where Jinx being strong generally leads to, hey, in solo queue, you will sometimes run into a comp with a Jinx on your team or against your team. And that's a bit of a different experience than, like, say, a Lucian or a Draven, right? A lot of the, like, more traditional, more popular in solo queue type carries, right? If I go to, like, the tier list and I look at bot lane and I look at the pick rates on this, Jinx being popular is a very different experience. Look at these other 4 champions. I mean, ignore Yunara, right? Yunara's new, right? Like, look at the other top champions. Like, okay, Kai'Sa, who is like has some like assassin properties, low range, riskier. Lucian, who is very low range, riskier. Early mid game champion. Jhin, who is not even really an AD carry. He's a mage. Sivir is more popular recently. It's like typically like champions like Ezreal and Caitlyn are popular. And Jinx provides a really different experience where it's like, hey, this is the teamfight pop-off AD carry. And she gives a really different experience. And so it can be good for her to be strong. Now, does that mean that she should always be strong? No, I mean, I don't think that that's true. But I think it can be good for some champions that provide really different experiences that can be positive to be strong for extended periods of time. Why does Freak say Jinx is low agency champion when she have long range AoE auto attack, low cooldown W that is a fast missile that deals damage and 80% slow? Could you rank some ADC agency? Agency is usually defined by, hey, how much ability do you have to enforce your will upon the game, right? Like, are you the person that is able to set up plays for, like, are you like the person who has Sejuani ultimate or Malphite ultimate, or are you the person who is going to pop onto the enemy backline as Talon and one-shot the AD carry and win the team fight solo for your team? These are all these things that lead to your team wins this engagement, wins this fight, or wins this game. These are all things that champions like Jinx don't have access to, right? Jinx requires her allies to set up for her, right? She needs her front line to stand in front of her so that she can stand there and auto attack. She needs her backline to peel for her so that she's not getting dove and just one shot by the enemy, Talon or Zed or whatever, right? Or and so on and so forth, right? Ultimately, Jinx is a low agency champion because she has little influence, or the decisions that the Jinx player is making have lower influence on the outcome of the game than other champions, especially in other roles, right? A high agency ADC would be someone like Twitch or Kai'Sa, who can set up their own plays and who can just, in the right situation, take the game into their own hands, right? Jinx doesn't have that, right? Jinx says, yeah, I really hope that my team sets me up to kill one of the enemy frontliners to get my passive going, but I literally can't do that by myself, right? Jinx doesn't do anything alone. She is dependent upon her teammates to make the correct decisions to set her up. Therefore, she is a low agency champion. There are a number of different ways to define agency, but fundamentally, I think the best one that I personally like, because it's quantifiable, it's just literally a number, is if you're better than the other player, or like, depending on how much better you are than the other player, right, by MMR, how much win rate do you gain, right? I really like this definition of agency. It's one of the ones that we actually use internally because it's measurable. And it says, hey, if you are 100 MMR up on your opponent in the AD carry position and you are playing Jinx, how much win rate do you gain from being up 100 MMR comparatively to when you're playing Lucian? And the ultimate answer here is if you're playing Jinx, you don't gain that much win rate by being up 100 MMR on your opponent. You gain some, right, because you're better than them, but you don't gain that much comparatively to someone like a Lucian or a Kai'Sa. Hi, Endstep. I was thinking Graves can't really be melee, but range limits is with item/rune options. Why not create a new semi-range class in between? You could use stuff like Yumu's and range like Fleet without range penalties. Gnar/Urgot could fit too. Just a thought with this, you can nerf Shieldbow and Conquer, but not Yumu's opportunity. I think making a new range definition is a lot of work, and I'm unclear on the benefits, essentially. Like, to me, the idea that, oh, you're going to suddenly get some great item diversity, I'm a little suspicious of. It's a lot of work to have a third range definition, and it's more confusing. It's not like, I think the split between melee and ranged is a lot more clear to people than if we have three profiles. If we say like, oh, melee, medium, and long range, right? And it's like, oh, but like 95% of our champions who are ranged, or actually 99% of our champions who are ranged are long ranged, is like a really bizarre way to split to me. I think to me, this argument is actually that range modifiers should scale with attack range, which I think is a real pitch for what it's worth. Like saying, hey, ranged modifiers are actually worse on Caitlyn than they are on Sivir, right? I think that's a real pitch for what it's worth, because it's getting at the heart of the problem of saying, hey, we want this thing to be better for people who are or for people who are closer to their opponents, right? And the further away you are, the more penalized you are. And so I think mid-range as a definition doesn't really make sense to me, because I think it adds a lot of confusion and a lot of work for what I perceive to be like almost no value. However, scaling range penalties with attack range doesn't seem crazy to me. Like, that's something that I've actually considered before as like, should that be how range penalties work? So ultimately, I like, my perspective is like, we're not going to make a mid-range definition for two champions. If that were the case, we would just like again, kind of what I was talking about with Graves of like, if that's the problem, like if the problem is that these champions have this issue with their items, it's like, oh, they need more, they need more of this thing than they have currently, we would just change their kits to have that thing, or to give them access to that thing. To speak specifically to the range thing, range essentially is options, right? Like, the more range you have, the more options you have, right? And, you know, other things give options too, right? Like, say, having a dash that's free target gives you a lot of optionality. And so the thing that I particularly like about scaling, like the idea of scaling range modifiers with your range, is that essentially the more optionality you're getting, the less raw power you get from these systems, which I think is a really compelling way of putting it. Like, hey, you're getting something from your range naturally that these other champions don't have. Therefore, we're going to give you less benefit from these systems because you have more options than them, so you get less power than them. Essentially penalizing people who have lots of optionality, which I think is cool.